Title: A Ripple in Time. Chapter 1. The Experiment. Dr. Elara Monroe stood in the middle of her makeshift laboratory, staring intently at the array of equipment that surrounded her. The barn-turned-lab was a chaos of wires and blinking lights, all culminating in a central contraption, a quantum stabilizer she'd meticulously assembled over months. Dusk seeped through the cracks in the wooden panels, casting the room in a dim golden hue. Her fingers ran over the steady hum of the machinery, a mixture of anticipation and dread twisting in her stomach. She'd come to Willow Creek, a quiet town far removed from the fast-paced city, seeking solitude to pursue her research on quantum entanglement. Years spent theorizing, and now she stood at the precipice of proving her work's value.
With a deep breath, Elara keyed the final sequence into her laptop.
Almost instantaneously, the air shifted, a soft buzz vibrating through her bones, a promising sign. Her heart pounded. Then came a blinding flash. The world turned white. Elara stumbled backward, shielding her eyes as a deafening roar filled the barn. An unseen force whipped through her hair, tearing at the papers littered on her desk.
She gasped, heart leaping into her throat, and just as suddenly as it started, the chaos ceased.
Silence engulfed the barn. Her eyes adjusted to see a figure, a man standing unsteadily outside, silhouetted against the fading light. Her breath caught. He was an anachronism, tall, rugged, and dressed in old, dust-covered attire.
"What in the world?" she whispered, stepping forward, the echo of her own voice haunting in the quiet aftermath.
"Where the hell am I?" he blurted, eyes glinting with suspicion and bewilderment. His hand hovered near an old-fashioned gun holster strapped to his hip, a relic in the modern age.
"I'm Dr. Elara Monroe," she managed, her voice catching. She put her hands up in a gesture of peace. "You're in Willow Creek, in the year 2025.
"Red Dalton," he said gruffly, glancing warily about the barn. "Don't see how that could be. Last I checked, it was 1887.
Elara nodded, forcing herself to remain calm, her scientific curiosity battling the growing panic.
"I think my experiment brought you here. It must have created a rift."
Red's eyes flicked to her contraptions, suspicion simmering beneath his steely exterior.
"Sounds like witchcraft to me."
Before Elara could respond, a voice echoed through the evening air, breaking the tense silence.
"Dr. Monroe, are you in there?"
Sheriff Eli Hargrove, a tall, solid presence with steady grey eyes, stepped into view. Behind his cautious gaze was the weight of authority and logic, tools he employed to keep the peace in this sleepy town. His eyes narrowed as they took in Red's attire.
"Who's this?" Hargrove demanded, his tone a mixture of protectiveness and disbelief.
"A visitor," Elara replied hesitantly, glancing at Red. "Sheriff, this is Mr. Dalton. He's just arrived and—"
Their words halted abruptly as the sheriff's radio crackled to life, urgency cutting through the night.
"Sheriff, we got a situation near the north end. Jody Maxwell's been found. She's dead."
The weight of that last word hung in the air like a dark omen. Elara's stomach clenched. She knew Jody, a kind soul, the town's librarian, and now the first casualty of this sudden temporal disturbance. Sheriff Hargrove's face hardened.
"I'll need to question you both. Stay right here."
With a grim look, he headed toward his squad car, speaking into his radio with quiet intensity as the twilight deepened around them.
"Seems like trouble follows, regardless of the year. You didn't—"
She began, hesitation in her voice.
"I mean, you wouldn't have—"
Red looked up, his gaze steady, unflinching.
"I reckon I've shot a man or two in my day, but I ain't killed no librarian,"
he replied firmly.
"Besides, my bullets are accounted for."
Elara nodded, sensing the truth in his words. She shivered, the barn's chill settling in her bones. Something darker was at work here.
"We need to figure out what happened,"
she said, rubbing her arms for warmth.
"I need to re-examine my equipment, see if I missed anything about the rift."
Red watched her closely, a calculating gleam in his eyes.
"This place you made?"
he said, gesturing to the barn laboratory.
"Seems like something out of a magician's tale, but I can't deny what I've seen with my own eyes."
"It's science, Red, and every aspect of it has to be grounded in reality."
Red tilted his head, skeptical but intrigued.
"And what about that dead woman?"
She swallowed hard.
That might be the rift's doing. When you crossed over, something else might have crossed with you."
His features darkened at the implication.
"And what would that be?"
Elara hesitated, recalling the distorted flashes she'd briefly glimpsed during the experiment, shadows shifting, shapes forming.
"I don't know,"
she confessed.
"but we have to find out." There's too much we don't understand.
Reckon Jody knew more than she let on.
Red commented, taking in the towering shelves.
Local secrets are a gunslinger's best friend.
The Order of the Veil?
Elara murmured, translating the arcane symbols.
Jody believed they have been protecting this town from supernatural threats for generations.
Secrets don't stay buried for long, especially if they're dangerous.
Elara scanned Jody's notes, piecing together fragmented history. An entry caught her eye.
1891, Reverend Alden mysteriously vanished months after a celestial event. Rites performed to seal the breach. We need to find this...
Elara said, looking at Red with conviction.
They might have the answers.
Red nodded, eyes glinting with a mixture of determination and wariness.
Lead the way. There's something about this place.
Red remarked, scanning the fields.
Like it's watching us.
They say the veil between worlds is thin here,
Elara replied, recalling Jody's notes.
and that this land remembers.
They reached a clearing where an outline of stones formed a path leading to a small, inconspicuous cave entrance, shrouded by underbrush. It seemed untouched by time, a hidden guardian of the town's darkest secrets.
Ain't no modern man's handiwork.
Red observed, cocking his head towards the intricate carvings adorning the entrance, symbols echoing unknown eras, stories lost to time.
Let's see what it holds. This must be the creature.
She whispered to Red, entranced and horrified.
Her fingers traced the legends, each etched line adding gravity to their quest. A sentinel of time, corrupted by a breach.
Then it's more than superstition.
Red replied, examining the markings carefully.
It's a warning, and maybe a way to stop it?
Elara nodded, a flicker of hope igniting.
The ancients knew how to seal the breach for a time, but they didn't have the knowledge we do now.
Elara?
Red began, his voice low and urgent.
Folks around here ain't known for staying calm in the face of what they can't understand. They'll turn on whoever they think brought this devilry upon them.
Elara nodded, anxiety tightening her chest.
Preacher Cartwright is already stirring them up. He's convinced I'm the cause.
Their route brought them past the shimmering glow of the town's meeting hall, where a congregation had gathered, voices raised in fervent discourse, swelling with fear and religious fervor. The preacher's voice cried above the din.
Brothers and sisters, we face a trial, a darkness conjured by those who meddle in the affairs of the divine.
Cartwright declared, eyes ablaze with zeal.
It is a punishment, a test of faith.
Red clenched his jaw, recognizing the volatility of a frightened mob.
Won't be long before they come for us.
Then we need to move fast,
Elara said.
They reached the decrepit inn that served as a front for the Order of the Veil. Inside, Oliver Kent, a young man with wary eyes, shepherded them through a dim hallway into a room rich with tradition, old wood, and heavier secrets. Abigail Reeves awaited them, a figure exuding authority and wisdom. Though aged, her presence commanded respect, her voice the kind that rallied and soothed in equal measure.
You have come for answers.
Abigail said without preamble, her gaze piercing as it swung between Elara and Red.
And you seek something more.
Elara swallowed, nodding as she suppressed a shiver from the eerie ambience that seemed to dance just outside their sight.
My experiment, it tore a hole in time. We need to understand how the rift was sealed before.
Abigail listened, unperturbed by the unsettling reality revealed to her. Her years of guardianship within the Order had schooled her well against the unrealistic.
The rift was once closed through ancient rites.
She began, pacing slowly, every step weighted with memory.
But the entity you spoke of, the corrupt guardian, was an unintended consequence. It now thrives on disarray.
Red shifted, skepticism plain.
How'd your bunch stop it then?
We used reverence and ritual.
Abigail's words washed over them, like a sage tide. But now the rift's nature has changed. It takes more than tradition.
Oliver leaned forward eagerly, eyes bright with youthful zeal.
There are patterns, connections between the symbols in that hidden cave and the equations found in quantum mechanics. We've translated some, but it's incomplete.
Elara's scientific mind ignited at the implication, a bridge between the mysticism of the Order's past and the science she wielded.
If the rift is a physical construct, we can apply those principles to stabilize it.
Abigail nodded, approval mingled with caution.
A solution, perhaps, but dangerous as it was before.
Red took in the exchange, the strange collaboration that bridged errors and realities with a singular goal.
Sounds like you've figured us a way out. We stand at the precipice of heaven's wrath, unless we rid ourselves of those who consort with darkness.
Cartwright proclaimed, eyes feverish with divine conviction. His growing legion echoed his cries, voices tinged with desperation. Elara and Red watched from the outskirts, nerves taut with awareness that this brewing storm needed but a spark to ignite violence.
Folk under Fear's spell are like wildfire,
Red remarked, scanning the scene.
Best step softly or they'll burn us all.
The creature preys on this fear.
Elara added, their minds racing.
We can't let it gain more ground.
Listen to reason.
He barked, pleading with futility.
Turning on each other is exactly what the darkness desires.
But reason had little sway over terrified hearts, and so Cartwright's message stoked the union between fervor and panic. Order frayed at the seams, teetering on catastrophic upheaval.
They'll tear the town apart?
Red foresaw, wrapping his fingers around the holstered revolver.
If we don't act now.
We have to reach the church, the last seal. We have to try.
Red urging Elara past the creaky threshold as the mob's distant cries threatened revolt. The church held a solemn atmosphere, untouched by time, spirits of history lingering within its walls. Here, where whispers of the Order's rituals lingered, Elara sought to understand the foundation necessary to mend what her recklessness had torn. Her eyes fell upon the ancient altar, a focal point around which destiny coiled countless souls, now a probable milestone in the endeavor to revel time.
There may be an incantation or some alignment.
She mused, skimming her work bag and producing the quantum schematics she'd painstakingly assembled.
I have to blend it with their rituals.
Red listened, nodding, though his grasp of science was at a remove. But he trusted the doctor's conviction as much as he trusted his own instincts.
They'll reach us soon, and that thing's out there waiting. You work, I'll keep him off your back. Give us the witch. Ain't no witch here, but if you want trouble, come get it.
The preacher cried false repentance, fueling action against prudence. Those driven by frenzied faith lunged toward the church doors, battering them with righteous fury. Red called back over his shoulder, maintaining defense. Each crash against the barricade carried desperation she imagined mirrored the erratic thrum of her heart.
We're running out of time.
I'm almost there.
Hold fast, Red.
Red's revolver barked defiantly, a thunderclap quelling doubts, holding at bay the harsher tempests of an angered multitude. He stood as a firm sentinel, every nerve attuned to the charged air and shadows tumbling toward them.
Elara?
Red called, his voice an unwavering beacon in chaos.
Whatever you've got to do, make it count.
She felt the final pieces of her creation click into place. Her hands trembled slightly as they hovered over the control panel, a device now ready to resonate with the time-shifted world around them. A deep, resonating hum filled the sacred space, the frequencies she had calculated vibrating through her bones. Her heart pounded with an urgency that matched time's persistent backward ebb. With a breath of resolve, she initiated the mechanism. It flared into life, light and sound mingling, recalling the breathtaking expanse of fate's absurd simplicity. Behind Red, the crowd's advance hesitated as the strange power of the device awoke. Skeptical faces mirrored that moment between confusion and new belief, each bearing witness to time's manipulation, this nexus of truth. From the shadows within, the creature slithered through the fabric of existence, a clarion call of darkness that sought the light and power Elara had made manifest. Its form writhed in tortured beauty, reality trembling under its passage.
Elara met Red's eyes, sharing an unspoken understanding, a trust driven not by time-spanning bonds but by shared survival and unfurling truth.
Best be ready for anything, Doc.
The creature loomed, casting an unnatural pallor over the altar, a shade born of time's injustices and hungers, removed from the natural order. Elara braced herself and adjusted the device's frequencies. The algorithm sang, a symphony of equations intertwining with ancient incantation, a vibrato shifting a dusty veil that obscured the future. The rift groaned in protest as it collapsed inward, an implosion, dragging forth the creature's foundation from fragments of experience and expectation. Its dark song muted by harmony Elara had composed. In that echoing void's resignation, the unnatural invader relinquished its grip, returning to the tapestry it had once guarded, but now sought to unravel. Peace slowly returned as the night grew silent once more. Hearts that had beat furiously calmed, hope flickering anew within.
Red cocked the revolver's hammer back, tipping his hat toward Elara with admiration surging beneath his gruff demeanor. Seems like you just saved more in this town.
Elara exhaled, the weight of expectation lifting, equally measured by triumph and uncertainty. They stood together, fleeting companions exploring time's rippling expanse. She offered a resolute nod, catching her breath amidst the quiet aftermath, the rift mended, spans rejoined, calculus suspended in entropy's lace.
Let's hope the line holds. We did it.
Elara breathed, her voice hesitant, almost disbelieving. The device rested in her hands, its purpose fulfilled for now, yet whispering of realities unexplored. It's a good start, Red grumbled, his usual stoic restraint sheathing a vulnerable undercurrent never before apparent.
But you know what comes next?
Elara nodded, heart heavy with the realization of consequence and continued vigilance. For while the town was spared, reality mended, it remained true that ripples were intrinsically impossible to contain fully. Memories of widening rifts traveled with her, powerful truths, warning through practiced repetition that time's play was a dangerous game. The Order of the Veil kept to their secrecies, fading into obscurity with purpose fulfilled until the land called for them again. Yet, in Oliver's eager eyes, Elara sensed continuity, a connection not easily severed.
Think you'll find your place here?
Red asked, observing her distant gaze with unusual perception.
After all this?
Elara took a moment, a future before her filled with unspoken pledges and unexpected kinships.
I'll find a way,
she replied, meeting his steady gaze, a solemn pact woven from the unfamiliar threads of her understanding. Red nodded, a shared commitment that felt as eternal as that ancient veil between worlds.
We'll make do we always do.
As they walked, residents emerged tentatively, glancing towards the ephemeral scars stretched across the yesterday sky, proof of the monsters beneath their skins, but also of faith in the inevitability of sunrise.
Elara found herself amid an unwritten chapter with potential and unexpected responsibility, debating an alliance in her heart. She remained haunted by past mistakes, a burning determination fueling discoveries to ensure they were not repeated. Red's watchful gaze lingered over modernity's unfamiliar landscapes, though its complexity puzzled him no longer. Beneath resilience's forthright surface, he weathered memories of a shadowed past, here, carving out his own place within a present woven from shared dilemmas. A gentle understanding fostered a rare kinship born amidst temporal tumult, yet sustained by mutual acceptance, a singular blend of stranger and comrade.
We'll make this place ours.
Elara voiced against the burgeoning day, confidence aligning with conviction.
Together.
Red's chuckle carried echoes of camaraderie.
Ain't like we've got much choice.
A world of new possibilities beckoned, footfalls tracing untapped energies across the pathways once cluttered by doubt and fear. By unspoken agreement, Guardian Rift Ordinary and Eternal Lupus tethered themselves back into reality, knowing that though the rift was sealed, life demanded continuance, a dance of progress and rediscovery. From silent shadows of the Order's concealed roots, Oliver's youthful zeal shadowed their movement, borders spanning science and symbol inspiring debut imprints upon time's breadth. Thus they walked amid paradigms anew, touching lives intersecting journeys, envisioning wards, echoing ages yet to come. Ripple by ripple, time flowed forward, harmonious resonance guiding unseen hands, a legacy of redemption fostering promise within a voyage embodied by transcendent possibilities, born once more to rediscover destiny's embrace.